Hi, how's it going? Andrea here. Welcome to our weekly How to Start Bible Study. Now, these are for any of my friends on here, but I really just wanted to make 10-minute, short, compact little devotionals to where we can learn something together, but also not so short that they leave all this room for, I guess, still questioning and not enough space to really be able to kind of feel like we're together. And so, I've prepared a couple of these, but I have to be honest with you guys that I had a completely different faith talk ready for this week. And then unfortunately, I had a member of the family pass away. And so I really wanted to cover the topic of grief as a Christian and what that looks like. And my grandmother, Grandma Marlys, she died 2 days ago, and it's been so hard because I also lost my grandpa on my other side of the family, my dad's side, earlier this year. And so there's also like a feeling of like reflection in that too that's starting to come up, where like I've moved away. I live in a totally different state than the place I was raised. And it just feels like I'm so disconnected. It feels like there's guilt there, just not being around in their final days, but also not spending enough time with them in my adulthood. Stuff like that is just coming up. I remember I visited the mountains that she lived in Buena Vista, and I had brought friends there, and they were like, "This is amazing. I bet you come here all the time." And I was like looking back on my CrossFit years and competing all over the world and putting all of my time and training into the gym. And I was just like, no, I really never come up here like I used to all the time in high school, with the rest of my family when we were all together. But I just was like kind of reflecting on like, why don't I? It is awesome. You're in the middle of a mountain town, and it was the place that they loved to be. And so they built a house there that they had windows, and it opened up right underneath Mount Princeton, and it was just beautiful. It was just incredible to see. Like every morning, you go eat breakfast or whatever, you look out the window, no matter what room you're in, and this just like all points to this huge mountain, and it's like, wow. It would always just make me think like, God is so good, So then of course someone dying and passing away, even at an old age, all those questions and doubts in our faith start to come up. And I'm sure you guys are, familiar with that kind of stuff because it's been a hard couple of years. I have a really great quote that I want to use for this, and it is a part of the Bible from 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13 and 14. It says, "Brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed about those who sleep in death, so that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope." Now, you guys, this part is talking about the Christian faith and believing that God, as a creator, brought us to earth. We have that part where we were fallen, okay? And this world is not what he intended it to be. And part of that is because sin entered the world, and Satan is the prince of the air. He controls this world, although God is sovereign. He still has big impact on it. And it's hard to swallow, right? But this should be encouraging to us, that it says, we do not want you to be uninformed about those who sleep in death, so that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope. So we have hope in Jesus. For we believe that Jesus died and rose again, and that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in him. So then it goes on to talk about how Jesus is coming back and how he's going to come into the world, and it's going to show up like a bright light with angels announcing everything, and it's going to be crazy, but everyone's going to bow a knee eventually. That's later on what the Bible talks about in Revelation. So in verse 17, right after, still chapter 1 Thessalonians, it says, "After that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And so we will be with the Lord forever." We should be rejoicing in that. Like, we will be with the Lord forever. Therefore, encourage one another with these words. And so these are, amazing words that are given to us to lift us up and to not deceive us. Like, oh, you don't really know what's going to happen to you after you die. You don't really know, there's no way to know God. There's no way to, it's like, well, God gave us the Bible, and the Bible is a way to know God. That's the best thing, is that if you spend time reading it, you'll know that it will closen and deepen your relationship with him. And it's so sacred and so special. And so people think, oh, the Bible's boring. And I'm like, I want to bring it to life, because God has really revealed it to be life-giving to me even in a season of like dark stuff and, you know, a year that's been hard. I mean, you know, in the middle of New York City, lots of shutdowns, pandemic's pretty scary around here. I had a baby, you know, raising a child by myself, isolated from most of my family. It's been tough. And so when I think about these last couple of years, you know, we have a lot of choices in our life, and we have a choice to whether go towards God when something hard happens or to turn away from him. You know, I have learned to blame all good things on God and all bad things on the enemy or people, because people are broken. And why is that? How can we do that? And it's just because God is good and all good things come from him. And I do truly believe that. Whereas before, when I was younger, when something bad would happen, I would say, God, why would you do that? As if it was God that allowed this hard thing. You know, as if he was punishing, or as if he wanted people to hurt, where that's never God's intention. But he does allow things. And I do truly believe that death in this world is just a part of it. And as we go through, like, it will happen. The things that I've been able to be thankful for is that my grandma lived an amazingly long, healthy, sweet life. She found the love of her life in her teens, and she was married well into her 80s. I mean, you have to like think about that. Like, there's so many people with grandparents with stories like that. You know, that's not really the way of the world right now as we see it. Tons of, you know, divorce and brokenness in relationships too. And so it's just a little sad that that generation is dying out, living that simple life, that simple love, that simple faith. But that's what I really admired about my grandma, like really admired. I have to share this story. So basically one time, you know, I was kind of starting to grow in my faith. I was having some growth spurts. I was about 26, maybe 27. And although my grandmother now, I mean, she suffered with Alzheimer's and blindness, you know, so the last few years have been really tough, and definitely in a nursing home in memory care. But back when she was still with it enough to have a decent conversation where she was like contributing and I was learning about her, where it wasn't just like seeing what she would react to and seeing if a term or a memory kind of sparked her. I remember we were like sitting at the table, and I hadn't really talked about my faith with like my family, looking at them as adults, whereas I was an adult. I just remembered thinking, oh, my grandma's my grandma and she has her own faith, but we never really talked about it. And I saw a Bible sitting there, and I asked her like how her week was going. And it was just amazing for my eyes to be kind of opened, because here I was being mentored by someone that was older than me. And at that time, I was super thankful for it. But I was just like, okay, cool. Like, this is the way God is, you know, working in my life. It's so fun. So then I see a Bible on my grandma's table, and I wanted to ask her like, oh, like, how's it going? You know, and she right away told me what she was reading. And I thought, oh, wait, but like, she's going blind. So like, how is she learning this stuff? You know, I thought maybe like on tape or whatever. She's like, no, I started trying to listen to the Bible on tape, but it wasn't for me. But she said that she was in a study, and one of the girls who was like 35 and had kids, like, just willingly took the time out of her day and out of her week to go over to my grandmother's house and be with her and study the word so that she could come to the studies and have something to say. Because she was feeling like when she was there, she didn't really get to interact with people because she hadn't been able to read. And it was just a tough time in her life and in her faith. And so this woman would come over and like read to her, and they would study together, and then they would, you know, go to the actual meetup. And you know, she said it was just more fun after that. And I just remember thinking, who is this woman that would do that? And like, I remember it bringing me to tears because I was so thankful. Like, I don't even know if I'll ever hear about her again, or like, you know, ever probably, you know, contact her or see her again. But like, I just love her love for the Lord, that she would keep my grandmother in mind, that she would care enough for her to do something like that for her. And so that was really sweet. My grandpa was pretty hard of hearing, and my grandma was going blind. So you can imagine, they were like each other's hands and feet, like, or in ears. But it was just kind of amazing to still see them work together throughout it all. And I remember when they were like getting help from my aunt, she went into their room like while they were sleeping, and their hands were clasped like this, you guys. Like, literally, they're sleeping on their back, like, for, you know, whatever, over 50, 60 years. And their hands are like this, and they're like just connected in that deep way. And I remember hearing that and being like, Lord, is this true? Could this be real? I mean, seeing all they had accomplished, building a home together, traveling all over the world in a camper. They were so adventurous. Thinking about them having, you know, 5 kids, 18 grandkids, 6 great grandkids, and 2 on the way. I mean, that's like no small feat, you know? And we were at a wedding one time, and all of us grandkids were all lined up. And we said, hey, Grandpa, none of us would be here if it wasn't for you. And then they've all looked at all of us. And he's like, wow, well, then I guess you guys should be saying thank you. It was so sweet. I mean, I just love looking at that as an example for love. So please pray for my family, my mom and her 4 siblings. Please pray for just like those different stages of grief that come through, those different stages of guilt, or just even just trying to get those memories, you know, because it's hard. You know, I'm 34 years old. It's hard for me to remember back into the time when I was growing up where like I even lived with my grandmother when I was small. And so I think about this verse that's always encouraging. And, you know, with that prayer request, me asking, like, I do believe in the power of prayer, and I just ask you guys to pray for us. And then the last verse I want to share is Matthew 5:4. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Thank God that we have a God that will comfort us when we're mourning. And we'll talk to you guys soon. See you next Sunday. Bye.